here with our birth mom, Sarah.
Hey.
And we actually filmed this video a couple of weeks ago and we were both out of focus. So this is take 2. We're just gonna kind of talk about the whole process, and then along the way, kind of questions naturally come up. I have been getting tons of questions from you guys about just adoption in general and our adoption specifically, and questions about our birth parents. So I thought it'd be really fun to sit down with you guys and just kind of have an open conversation about it. So just a quick little backstory if you haven't watched our previous videos. My husband and I have been married for 11 years. We tried to get pregnant for 7 years with no success, and then we started the adoption process, and then I think a month after we started the adoption process, we got a phone call from Ben and Sarah that came as a very big surprise.
Yes.
To you guys, I'm sure too.
Oh God, yeah. Filling a little bit more history. Ben is Brittany's brother.
Oh yes, didn't say that part.
So it's not, we're not just two random people like, hey, I'm about to have a baby. You want one? Let me just jump into some meat here. I'm not a highly religious person. I know that there is another power out there, but I don't want to be like, this is it. Part of me believes that you started that journey and Ben and I met right at the same time because this was supposed to happen.
Yes, I mean, it's crazy looking back on our fertility journey, and there were so many times, I am a religious person, so there were so many times where I just thought that he wasn't hearing us, that he wasn't getting our prayers, and that he had forgotten us, and I didn't know if we were ever going to be parents, and it was something that we wanted so badly. But looking back on it now, like everything was working out just as it should. And now I can see all of the pieces were lining up the whole time. I just didn't realize it and see it.
I walked in like halfway through a puzzle and
Yes.
somehow had the other half of the pieces.
Yes, right on.
I'll take it.
So they found out that they were pregnant, and I think called me up like the day that they found out, but you had kind of known that you were pregnant for a while.
I think we waited, I had known, yeah, for a couple of weeks, and Ben took his sweet time to get the pregnancy test. Yeah, I had already known, plus I take everything from my dreams. Everything, my dreams always try to point, or they always do kind of give me little hints about what's going on, what needs to change, or what the outcome could be. And I just was always having these little dreams of, you know, a kid grabbing my hand and taking me somewhere else, and I just always followed. I just never knew where I was gonna end up.
So you found out that you were pregnant. You kind of hinted to it right there, but what was kind of the process of choosing adoption for you guys? Like, what made you make the phone call to Joe and I, and kind of what was your headspace?
For me personally, I just knew with the dreams and the constant that this child is here to see me for whatever reason, for whatever duration of time. They're here to see me, but they're taking me somewhere else. Whether they're taking me there for me or taking me there for them, I'm gonna go find out what's happening. But soon enough, like, these dreams all just kind of came together, and I was passing this little hand off to another bigger hand, and it wasn't just, here daddy, hold your baby's hand. It was, here's your baby. You know, and so that did it for me. That told me that this was the route to go. I always kind of just had that little inkling that Harper was not meant to be mine. And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
She's so wonderful.
Yeah. So you kind of just like, there was just a gut instinct that was just telling you from the very beginning, adoption. So another question that I get most often, I think the #1 question is, why did Ben and Sarah choose adoption? And then the second question that I get a lot is once they see that Ben and Sarah already have kids. So Sarah has a daughter, Eva, from a previous relationship, and then Ben has 2 daughters from a previous marriage. And so I think that when people see that they already have kids, they just think, oh, well, if you already had kids, why did you choose adoption for the 4th baby between the 2 of you guys? So yeah.
That's a funny question. It's not fair to struggle with 3 and expect a 4th to come along and be okay and just go with the flow, because we have to be able to offer the child everything that she deserves. Not necessarily all her wants, which, you know, is different from needs, but we couldn't necessarily give her her needs. She would need a room that's not shared with 3 other little girls. You know, maybe one other girl is fine. But she would need, you know, attention, and she would need, you know, money that we don't have, and there was just, we just weren't ready for her.
Yeah,
we were not prepared, and we're happy to have her, and we're glad she's here, and there's nothing that'll change that, but she's just not meant for us.
Yeah, I think that the way that I try to answer that, like in the comments, is just because you had another pregnancy doesn't mean that you are ready for any pregnancy that comes afterwards. Like, you can be ready for your first pregnancy or your second pregnancy, but then your third pregnancy, you could be at a completely different time in your life. You could be at a particularly rough time in your life. And your focus is gonna want to be on the 2 kids that you already have, and you don't wanna bring a third one into it and have to kind of stretch yourself further and stretch your resources further. And so I think that people don't realize that a lot of times birth parents already have kids. It's not something where birth parents only choose adoption when it's their first child. I think that kind of touches on another point. I think a lot of people think that people only choose adoption, birth parents only choose adoption because it's strictly financial, and that's not the case. There's so much that kind of goes into the decision.
There's a million different reasons why anybody would choose adoption. Maybe somebody just strictly was not prepared to ever have a child, and they still feel that way, and there's nothing that's going to change it, and that's okay. That's the person who's going to adopt out their first, second, third, whatever. That's fine. You're making somebody else's life fuller and happier, and somebody else's home warmer and noisier and dirtier, but it's worth it in the long run. I mean, I can't speak for everybody else. It's definitely not always financial, but for me, there was a financial side to it, but there was also just, like I've been saying, a little something in the back of my head that told me she's not meant to be with me for forever. I'm a carrier, and I'm okay with that.
And then also, you guys had just been dating for a couple of months, so to be dating for a couple of months, you guys had a lot going on in your lives at the time, and then to all of a sudden be parents together,
that's not something we were at all prepared for.
Right.
So, and it's okay. You guys were prepared.
Yeah. So kind of going along with the process, we got the phone call. I feel like when the phone rang, I knew that there was something up. Like I kind of almost knew what it was, which is crazy. But we were definitely still very scared and apprehensive because we had been waiting for so long to get pregnant. And we were so nervous starting the adoption journey because we didn't know how long it was going to take us to get chosen by birth parents. And so then here, like right in the beginning of the process, we were being contacted. But with it being family, we were definitely like, is it going to be weird with family? I think that's probably like the third question that I get is it weird with family? And that was a question that Joe and I had in the beginning, like, is it going to be weird? And so we kind of sat with Ben and Sarah and talked about it, and we had told them to really think about it for the next like 3 months because she had just found out that she was pregnant. There was no rush on it.
Right.
But I think that that's something else that people kind of don't understand is they think that maybe we found out that they were pregnant and we approached them like, hey, we can't have kids. And that's definitely not what happened. They definitely approached us with the pregnancy, and then we kind of told them to think about it, and while they were thinking about it, we were thinking about it, and then after a few months they called and said,
we're sure.
Yeah,
it's time.
Yeah, and then they invited us to an ultrasound, which was really fun.
Whoa, that's a heartbeat?
Yep. There's the heartbeat noise right
What the
there.
heck?
And we're gonna listen to that. We can get that. Perfect.
That's crazy.
Great.
I knew Ben was open to it because he saw the same things that I saw. We were on the very same page. He knew that financially we weren't there. We weren't going to be there if I wasn't going to be working through the pregnancy. We eventually did sit down and we had a really great conversation. And that's one thing I really love about Ben is I can sit down and talk to him. But to sit down with him, and I started the conversation off with, what do you think we should do? Like, we have to figure this out. We can't just keep thinking about it. An answer has to come. And I told him that I felt very strongly towards adoption, and adoption for, you know, to you and Joe in particular. I think had he not wanted to do it, we wouldn't have done it. Had he thought it would have been weird to, you know, give the baby to you and Joe, then I would have stopped it, because I'm not.
Yeah, and so would I, because that was something that I told Joe during the process was, my biggest fear isn't that they don't choose adoption. My biggest fear is that they choose adoption and Ben isn't on board, because I would have such guilt for the rest of my life knowing that we're raising Harper and Ben isn't okay with it, and that he does have hard feelings when he comes over. And so I was just like, that's my biggest fear. And so we definitely wanted to make sure that both of you guys were 100% before we.
Right. That's what I was afraid of too. And so to sit down with them, when we did sit down, I was shaking, because I've never had a good sit down conversation with somebody. But it went over really well. And he and I both agreed that it wouldn't happen if it weren't you guys. If you guys had decided no, had Brittany and Joe said, we can't take this, we can't do that, we won't, then we wouldn't have done it, period. She'd be with us, she would be ours, and nothing would have changed. But Ben was so open, and he just loves you so much. He really does. And his whole thing was, for Brittany, anything.
No.
You know, and so, and as soon as he said that, I was like, he's on board, he's good with this, we got it. You know, we're good.
He's sweet.
So here we are.
Yeah. So then they called us and said, okay, we're official. That was when we went to the first ultrasound. That was when we put together our adoption video, our adoption announcement video, and it was the beginning of a crazy whirlwind. It was a really exciting time for sure.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't awesome.
It was a disaster. She had a very bad morning sickness.
It was awful.
There's a name for it, right?
Hyperemesis.
So once we were all on board, we were working with an agency, so then they had to contact our agency, and it was mandatory that they meet with a counselor / caseworker, and that was somebody that was kind of their advocate. They didn't work with us at all, so she met with Diana, and that person is there to be the birth parents advocate, to answer any questions that they have and just really be there for them. Their goal isn't to talk the birth parents into adoption at all. Or out of it. They're just there to just be there for you however you need them. And so
she bought me ice cream.
Aww. So she went and met her for the first time and worked with her, and I'm really glad that that's kind of mandatory through our agency, because I was glad that you guys kind of had somebody.
It was really great to have. I mean, I know we can always ask Brittany and Joe questions and contact lawyers or whatever is necessary to get our questions answered, but it was really nice to have somebody that I could call directly and say, what if? Because pregnancy brain and hormones, I don't know about your guys' anxiety, but suddenly every little thing, what if the light bulb bursts and it catch on fire and everything is up in flames? I don't know where it came from, but I would call her on occasionally and be like, all right, I'm really sorry, but.
Yeah.
But she always answered my questions. She was always really sweet about it. She never, well, that's stupid.
Right.
There was none, she never put me down. She was just constantly, what do you need? Are you okay? Do you need clothes? Do you need food? Or, I'm like, I'm good, but thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that that's kind of another thing that I think people might have thought of when we put our adoption birth blog up online, was that once they chose adoption, in the hospital and everything, that they weren't allowed to change their mind, that their arm was being twisted into it. And not the case at all.
No.
If they did decide in the hospital that they wanted to change their mind, all they would have to do is call their caseworker and tell them, and then they would have called us and said, I'm sorry, but the birth parents changed their mind, and that would have been it.
Yep.
So the birth parents are definitely in control all the way up until they sign the paperwork, which can be like a week after the baby's born.
It's a minimum of 5 days later and up to, I guess, however long it takes. You have to, as the birth mother, you have to keep your rights for 5 days and then sign that away. Or if you're still not 100% sure, this particular agency that we used offered something called crib care, I think it was.
Cradle care.
Cradle care, where the baby will go to a completely different foster home temporarily while you as the birth parent make up your mind. I didn't need any of that though. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. And then the birth mother and the birth father can also like form together a hospital plan, and they give it to the agency in their hospital. And so in the hospital, they get to call the shots. They get to decide what's best for them and what they want, and you know, if they want the adoptive parents there or not. And so it's definitely not a twisting of the arm.
Not at all. Not at all. It was very relaxed. It was very easy. Scariest part was labor.
Yeah.
And once the epidural was in, I was good.
Yeah, she did good.
Yeah, I did make a hospital plan, a birth plan through the adoption agency, but there is absolutely no arm twisting. Even the stuff you write down as your own plan for stuff that you want to do. Don't what?
You don't have to stick to it.
Oh, okay. You don't have to stick to it at all? No.
Yeah, because I think it's hard for birth parents to know how they're going to feel. Like, they don't know what emotions they're gonna have. They could be happier than they thought. They could be sadder than they thought.
I was so angry from being sick so often. I was just like, keep everybody away. Then the time came and I'm like,
yeah. And I just like tried to, my biggest worry was that I was gonna offend them in the hospital, both her or Ben, by like holding Harper too much or holding her too little, or telling her I love her too soon, or not telling her I love her quick enough. Like, I didn't know if I should be gung-ho like I'm your mom, or if I should, you know, kind of wait and allow Sarah to be the mom until she was kind of ready to pass the torch on down to me. And so I just told Sarah, like, every time I saw her at the last couple of months, and just told her, in the hospital, I'm gonna follow your lead. So you tell me what you want me to do, and I will just like look to you for guidance. And
I threw the torch at her head.
But I think in the beginning she was kind of thinking that once Harper was born, like, you know, just that all of us would kind of leave the room with Harper. And I was glad that once Harper was born, she was like, no, you know, you can stay. And so we stayed all in the hospital room together for like an hour. Her, Ben, Joe, and me and Harper, and Sarah held her, and Ben held her, and we held her. And I really liked that we were all kind of able to just kind of hang out and just kind of all be parents in that moment.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
Good time.
Yeah. So then that leads us to today. I think one of the biggest questions, like I mentioned before, was, is it weird being with family? How does it feel when they come over? What do your visits look like? So basically for our visits, when they were still pregnant, they told us like kind of there was a time where we sat down and they told us what they were hoping for with the adoption, and we told them what we were hoping for with the adoption, to see if we were all on the same page, and if we were, then we would like continue to proceed. And pretty much their only thing that they brought to the table was that they wanted to be able to just visit Harper whenever they wanted, and that they didn't want it to be like, you can only see her 3 times a year, but just whenever they wanted to see her, that they can just call and say, hey, can we come over this weekend? And yeah, Joe and I were totally cool with that, especially with it being family.
Right, yeah, we didn't want to be limited. And we didn't think we would be limited anyway. We're over here generally once a month as it is. And that was the most that I had hoped for, was just let me see her once a month. Let me come watch her grow. And I mean, even still, that's pretty much how it's been even from the beginning.
And there's even been once or twice where like I've contacted her and said, she is growing like a weed, you guys need to get over here.
Yeah.
Because she's changed so much since you guys last saw her, and I definitely want them to be able to, you know, kind of see her through those milestones and stuff. And so yeah, it's been very natural. Just whenever they want to see her, they just send a text saying, hey, can we come over? Or sometimes we just go ahead and invite them over without them asking. There's been a couple of times where Sarah has asked me to text her a picture really quick, so then I send her a real-time picture.
Which is always nice to get. They're funny. I know that not every adoption situation is going to be the same as ours, and so if you're a birth mother watching this and your adoptive parents maybe don't live as close as you'd like them to live or something like that, that's okay. Try to work something out between you guys. Sit down, make sure that it's a family that you know you can talk to, some people that you're comfortable with, and you can go to them and say, this is a concern of mine, how can we fix this, or how can we make it less concerning? Right. Generally, the vast majority of adoptive parents, I believe, would be willing to work with you and wanting to figure something out.
Yeah. And that's, can I cut you off for a second?
No, you're good.
That's a key part when choosing an adoptive family, is to interview them. And if there's something that isn't working out for you, it's okay to choose another family. When you're choosing an adoptive family, there might be some kinks in the road that you kind of talk to them and see if you guys can kind of compromise and meet in the middle. And that's totally fine to do too. But the wonderful thing is that you can really find an adoptive family that just, really feels right to you and that you're 100% comfortable with.
Yep. You have to be able to click with them. They're the people who are going to raise your child.
Yeah, and if you have, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you again.
I'm not allowed to talk.
If you have an open adoption, that is so important that you click with them. It's not 100% just about how they are going to be as parents, but you are kind of entering into a marriage with the adoptive parents, because if you're having an open adoption, you're gonna be in each other's lives for at least 18 years, and you guys really have to have a good relationship. You really have to feel like you can go to them, and vice versa. If you're an adoptive parent and a birth mother comes to you and you're just not really feeling a click with her, I know that it would be really hard to kind of turn that adoption down, but it is so important that you feel a click with the birth parents and that they feel a click with you.
You don't want that child to grow up and think, well, my birth parents and my adoptive parents or my parents don't like each other, because then you're kind of looking at a divorced situation, and that's really uncomfortable, I believe, for the child. You gotta know that you're gonna want to be around these people for the next 18, 20, 50, 60 years. Who knows how long it'll actually be. Yeah. If you don't get along, they're probably not the birth parents for you.
Yeah.
Or adoptive, whichever way that's going.
Yeah.
Have that comfort zone. Be able to talk to them. If you can't talk to them, don't put yourself through that. It's just gonna make everything harder on you as the birth parent.
Especially the hospital stay.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like if you can't, communicate to them your feelings and things like that, it's gonna be really hard.
It's gonna be really hard for you to watch the child that just grew within you for 9 months walk out the door with somebody that you don't totally trust.
So yeah, so going back to whether or not it's weird with family, I think it's hard to understand, but I think it's, for us, the adoption is better because it's with family, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. She gets, like I was saying, she gets mom and dad, and then she gets bonus mom and bonus dad.
Yeah, she was saying that she wouldn't be called bonus mom, which I haven't been calling you during this whole video.
That's okay. It's a new idea.
Yeah. Does it feel weird when you come over to see her? How do you feel? What are your emotions?
Happy. I get to hang out with Harper.
Yeah.
She's just so wonderful. She's so sweet and she's funny, and even if she hits that chaotic moment, it's just a sweet little gooey smile. Then I just get to go, hey mom, and then we're done here.
Do you ever have any feelings of regret, like somebody in the comments?
No. God, that horrible person in the comments.
She reads your comments.
That's funny. I do, and sometimes I respond. If they're sassy, that's probably me. No, I never. I know that Ben and I made the right choice when it comes down to this baby here. And as long as that's something that's always there, I will never have a regret. It's what's right for her, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I think that something that I tried to explain in one of my adoption Q&As before, just from other families that I've talked to, and it's hard to explain when you haven't gone through it, but from what I've heard from other birth moms, because I've been looking into adoption for like the past 10 years, is that the hardest part is during the pregnancy and then actually placing the baby, you know, in the adoptive parent's arms. But the visits after are the best part for them. Like once they see that baby in that home and they see the parents as parents and they see how much that baby is loved, that for them, it just kind of further solidifies their decision, and they, whenever they see the baby, they get validation that I made the right choice, and it brings them so much joy to see the baby in that home.
I've never seen her wear the same outfit twice. Enough said. Wear the same pair of pants all week.
So would you say that it kind of like,
It totally,
when you see her, it doesn't make you regret your decision, it makes you, it reminds you why you chose the decision.
yeah, it makes me so much happier. And it reaffirms everything that I've been saying this entire time. Just, she's happy, she's healthy, she's got this little chubby belly. She's perfect.
You know,
And she, yeah. And she's in the right home, she's where she's supposed to be. And even if I didn't have the dreams of the kid leading me to somebody else, eventually I think I still would have come to the conclusion I'm meant to carry her. I'm meant to be her, you know, her suitcase. I mean her suitcase. But
No, I love the way
somebody
she's
else
looking
gets
at
to unpack you.
Yeah. So last question, just kind of like a bonus question. I think that we've covered pretty much all of the questions that I get most frequently. Is what has been the best part, which we kind of just answered. What was the hardest part, and how did you get through it?
Hardest part was all the throwing up.
You had mentioned that you were worried about what Harper was going to think about the adoption when she's older.
That is something I don't totally worry about it anymore, but I think back
During the
then,
pregnancy though, I think that is something that most birth mothers,
the thing
when
in their
they're
head is
worried about
moving.
something, oh yeah. It's a soft spot.
It's like she inhaled and it went,
yeah, it goes with her pulse.
oh my God. Cover that.
But I think that when birth mothers have a fear, it's that fear. It's what is this child gonna think when she's older, and is she gonna feel like I abandoned her?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay, so there's that ex-ambassador song, Unsteady, and have you listened to it yet?
No, not yet. I'm almost scared too.
Oh, dude. I was pregnant at the time, and we had already decided on the adoption when I really started listening and hearing the lyrics in that song, and my brain immediately tied all of it to Harper. If you haven't heard that song, go ahead and go give it a listen. It's a good song. But it's parts where, you know, something about, you know, Dad, I know you're tired, and Mom, if you're there, stuff like that, don't let me go. And I tied all of that, like, if anybody in this world is unsteady, it's a newborn. They're unsure, they don't know what's going on, they certainly can't stand on their own, you know, and am I abandoning her? And it broke my heart. I could not listen to that song. I still can't totally listen to it. But I kind of sat down with myself, and it's not any kind of an abandonment, and it's a reasonable fear to have, because you did the deed, you got pregnant, and now there's a consequence that comes with it. Not that babies are consequences,
But yeah,
but you know what I mean.
something came that you weren't planning for.
Yeah, you weren't prepared for this next step, and there it is. And to come to the conclusion that adoption might be for you, every once in a while the thought that you're abandoning the baby, I think, is a normal thought, but it's not in any way any form of abandonment. This child is going to a home that can give him or her so much more than your own home could. You know, you recognize that you're not prepared, whether it's, you know, a mental or an emotional or a financial unpreparedness. It's hard.
Yeah.
Because you believe you are abandoning the child, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're doing what's best. It's just a little voice in the back of your head that's telling you you're doing the wrong thing, but that's the same voice that always tells you you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the one that you have to not listen to. And my gut instinct told me that adoption was right. I was not abandoning her. I was not doing anything wrong by her, by myself, or by anyone. I was simply doing what I was supposed to do.
One of the quotes that I love about adoption, about birth parents is, if I can remember it correctly, birth parents put the needs of their child over the wants of their heart. And I think that with birth parents, it's not that they don't love that baby, and it's not that they don't want that baby, but they're putting the needs of that baby ahead of their own wants and their own desires. And it's just the most selfless, brave decision. And I just respect every single birth mother and father that has ever made that decision, especially our own, because the joy, don't cry, no the joy that Harper brings us every day. You're silly. She's laughing at mommy. The joy that she brings us every day
Quit that crying, Mama.
is a gift that was given by our birth parents. We wouldn't have her in our lives. We wouldn't have the joy that she brings us every day if it wasn't for their decision.
And that's the best part, to answer the question from before. Like I said, the worst part was getting sick. The best part, hands down, was the look on your face when you held her for the first time. That did it for me. And then just seeing you guys with her, you know, the pictures that we get that include you and Joe every once in a while. I just love it. I love watching Joe in the videos messing with her. They have such a bond, and it's just so strong and so beautiful, and I love it.
No, well, we love you guys.
We love you too. And her.
All right, with that, I'll go ahead and end it.
Skull.
The kids are playing awesomely outside, but it's probably starting to get cold, so we should let them in. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you to Sarah for doing it with me. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.